but just try to submit your assignments, please. So let me share my screen quickly, and then we can start. Where am I? Okay, can you guys see my screen? Oh,
Yeah.
okay, so let me get to my slides. Okay, zoom. Okay, yeah, so today's typography, we'll talk on what typefaces are. Then we'll talk about how you can choose typefaces. We'll know about typography rules. And then I'll give you some resources where you can actually get fonts or typefaces, and even where you can pair typefaces. We're now in the 21st century, so there's no stress. It's not before when you have to go through catalogs and start using magnifying glasses and all. But now there are a lot of resources for typeface parents, so you don't really need to do much. It's more about just knowing those resources, and it just speeds up your work generally. Okay, so let's begin for today. Welcome again. Sorry, I'm a bit tired, but I'll try my best. So let's start with typography, the definition of typography. And typography is more or less the art, or let's say the technique of arranging type to make written language legible. Some say make it readable. Some say also to make it appealing when displayed. That's majorly typography, is how you arrange written languages. Okay? So we have English, we have French, we have all of that. The way you arrange it is what we call typography. Okay. So the method for arranging type involves selecting typefaces. We have things like point sizes. We have things like line height.
I want to go and find it.
Okay. So it includes things like point sizes, line lengths, line spacing. We have letter spacing. We have methods of adjusting spacing between text. We'll talk about that when we get to terminologies in typography. But it's more or less bringing together all of these things to form this sort of cohesive typeface or font. Okay. But before we move forward, it's better to understand what the difference is between typeface and font. Okay. Now, they are more or less the same thing, but people tend to mistake them for something else. So typeface is more or less like a collective name of a family of related fonts. Okay, so related fonts belong to a typeface, whereas the font refers to like the weight, the width, the style that constitutes a typeface. Okay, so look at this picture here now. The typeface is Helvetica, meaning it's the entire family of fonts, okay, of different weights. So we call that a typeface. Whereas the font is a member of that typeface. So a font will be Times New Roman bold. A font will be Times New Roman italics. That is a font. Whereas the typeface will be what? Times New Roman. The same thing applies for other typefaces. So when a typeface only has one font, you don't really call it a typeface, you call it a font. Whereas when a typeface has multiple fonts, you can fully say, okay, it's a typeface, or sometimes they call it a font family. It's another way of defining it. Okay, so that's majorly the difference, because people tend to get confused between what a typeface is and what a font is. But just remember, the font is inside the typeface. The typeface is the family. Okay, so let's go on to talk about typeface categorization. Okay, so typeface categorization is into four. Okay, so we have four main categories of typefaces, and the first one is serif. Okay, and the way you can identify serifs are with their curly, edges. Okay, things that have stems or things that protrude from their edges are referred to as serifs. Serifs are, I would say they have this kind of attention grabbing feature. Okay, so serifs are good when you want to sort of grab attention and do some, some nice expressions with your typeface. Okay, serifs also has, I think they have their own categories. We have condensed, we have old style. There are lots of types, but generally that they are grouped into serif, as long as it has the stem attached to the edges or something protruding from the edges, it's a serif. Okay. The second one is the second category is sans serif. Okay, so in French, sans means without, so it just means without the serif. Okay, so sans serifs don't have those stems. They are majorly rounded, not all, and they also have their categories. So there's grotesque. I think there's fully rounded. So sans serifs are also nice when creating typography for younger audiences or people with reading disabilities, sort of. When we get to choosing typefaces, we understand that better. But sans serif is much more friendly than serif. It exhibits less dominance compared to serif. But let me mute. Okay. So because it exudes less, dominance than the serif. The serif, because of the way serifs are structured, they tend to, have some sort of, attention-grabbing feature. So sans tends to just blend with your designs, which is why we find out that most new generation designs are, adopting sans serifs more. So the third category is display. So display are things that look like this, very cursive and all. And in most cases, we use display typefaces to, express emotions. Okay, we are trying to express something, and displays vary. Sometimes some display typefaces can also fall into the serif category. But most times when you are selecting these typefaces or fonts, you tend to know what they are from whichever font foundry you are getting it from. Okay. So when we get to the end, I'll give resources for getting those fonts, and most of those places will tell you if it's a display font, because sometimes it's confusing to know if it is a display or if it's a sans serif, if it's a serif rather. Then the fourth category is the mono, or we call them monospace or something. So these are typefaces that often have, I won't say often, always have equal height and equal width, as well as equal spacing. Okay, so the spacing between each alphabet or character is the same. The height for each character is the same. The width for each character is always the same. So the monos are majorly used for professional documentation, sort of, and it's nice for very, very extremely long text, like beyond just reading articles and all. Not good for books, so which is why you will discover most programmers use monospace fonts for coding. They have so much code and all, because it just is balanced. Everything is structured. There are situations where you might use it for your designs. It depends on what you are designing. So let's discuss the importance of. Let's not say the importance, but let's talk of more about important points of typography. Because type is essential at the end of the day. No one can read anything without having good type. So the first thing is that it's important to note that every typeface has a personality, as they represent the voice of a brand. Okay. So every typeface is expressive of something. Serifs are dominant, sans serifs are friendly. Display is expressing a type of emotion, Monospace is showing professionalism or something, So these typefaces have, personalities, So it's important to note that when you want to select a typeface, you should know what you are selecting it for, so you don't just end up picking the wrong thing. The second thing to note is that type can help us pass messages. Okay. Now, when someone comes to your website, when someone comes to your application, okay, your web app, your mobile app, or whichever product you design, you are not there to tell them with your mouth that this is what you mean. Okay. Type, color and every other thing. Next week we'll be doing color, and every other thing passes that message to them. Okay. And if you are not using the right type of typography, okay, if you are not using the right type of type, okay, or typeface, it's difficult for them to grab that message. Fine, you might have a good content strategist or a good writer and all, but if the typeface you chose for that product doesn't match, the message you're trying to pass, it's lost. So the third thing is the type of type chosen can make your message appropriate or inappropriate, which is what we've said. Okay, so the type of typography, oh god, why am I repeating type? The type of typeface, okay, that you choose, can, make your message appropriate or inappropriate. That's basically it, because if, okay, maybe when we talk more on selecting type, we'll understand better. But if someone is coming to, let's say, banking website, for example, okay, and you are using a display font, you are taking them, it's very inappropriate for that kind of website, okay, because they don't expect anything to be dancing around on that website. They want, professionalism there. Okay? They want something that is structured, that is clean, So the type of type you choose, okay, can give the wrong impression or can give the right impression. Okay. So it also determines how your brand or product is perceived. Okay. We said types have emotions. We said they express something. Okay. So if you are not expressing that feeling, the user can't perceive it because, let's say you are using a rigid type, a monospace type for a kid's product. Children will never appreciate that because it's not appealing to them. You would have to go for maybe a display font, which might not be a variation of a handwritten font. That way they feel welcome. They like the way it appears, because a handwritten font looks friendly. It looks like it's a human being that wrote it. It looks like it is them that wrote it. So that's another thing to also note. The way you use type can determine how your brand is perceived as well. So briefly, I won't really talk much on the anatomy of type. There's a link to where you can read more on it. I'm not an expert on anatomy of type. I'm not an expert on type. There are people who live, breathe, and their life is typography. But the anatomy of type is majorly, understanding the structure of typography as a whole. The different terminologies that have to do with type. Things like the cap height. The cap height is more or less the general height of a particular character. Okay, there's a stem. Okay, there's the baseline. The baseline is more or less like the bottom part of the type. There's the descender. So descenders are majorly for serifs, I think, although they're applicable to grotesques and serif. That's why I said it's a very big field. The anatomy of type is a very big field on its own. You can survive without knowing this stuff, okay? Don't allow anybody to see. so,
Oh God, you're very funny, sir.
no, it's the truth. It's the truth. You can actually survive without knowing all this stuff, okay? Because there are people who come up with this, sometimes these terms, they just extra layer of abstraction and they give you headache, But you can survive. I've survived without knowing this stuff, okay? It's more or less understanding what makes up type as a whole. Once you know some basic things like baseline, cap height, and then, maybe the how to kern. So once you know how to kern, track, and do leading, those three are majorly the most important things, which we'll just talk on. Once you know how to do those very well, you don't really need to kill yourself on understanding the anatomy, because there are people who live on their courses. People pay thousands of dollars to learn type, okay? But that's if they are interested in it, okay? So people go ahead, they learn how to create type, and then they come out with a degree and they create type. It's nice, it's fun, but you can survive without knowing the anatomy. But there's a link for you to just read up on it. It's just to understand what these terms are. Okay? That's majorly about it. So let's talk on the important terms in okay. Let's talk about important terms in typography. So those are the ones I said, are majorly the most important for you to know. So the first one is leading, okay, or leading or whatever. Okay, so sometimes it's also described as line height, okay. So it's more or less the vertical space between each line of type, okay. So sometimes most of these typefaces come with their built-in leading, which is perfectly okay. But I think last week when we were designing now and we did the big header, we discovered that the bottom text was sort of touching the upper text, and we decided to do line spacing to bring it down a little. Okay, that's leading. That's generally it. There are situations where you will need it. Which is why I said those three are usually the ones you'll be interacting with the most. Okay, that's leading, kerning, and tracking. Okay, so leading is also called line height. Okay, and it's just the vertical space, between lines of text. Okay, so you would find out as you design regularly that you might need some extra bit of space, vertical space, between your text. That's what leading does for you. So we have kerning next. So kerning is more or less the process of adjusting the space between characters. Okay, so there are some fonts or typefaces that are very notorious for, when you bring in two particular characters, they tend to be too close together. Like when you bring a capital E and a capital V, I think Avenia does that a lot. Okay, so they are so close together that you can't really tell the difference. You can't really see that spacing. So this is where you use kerning. Okay, kerning can just help you separate just two characters. Okay, or space out two characters. Depends on your design software. I think Figma does it by 1%. Okay, but I know XD can do it by 0.5. So it just depends. So when you find yourself in that situation where you are using a typeface and some characters are too close together, you can actually use kerning to make it look appealing, sort of.
Yeah.
So the next type terminology is tracking. So tracking is more or less the opposite. So tracking is like kerning, but it creates even spacing amongst all the characters within that that text. So it will be like an even spacing between everything. That's just the difference. Kerning will pick 2 or 3 characters and then you create even spacing amongst those characters. But tracking will have to be the entire text. Okay. So those three, and you are good. You are safe with type. Okay, I think you are very safe with type. But if you want, you can always go back and read the anatomy. I survived without anatomy, but I'm not saying if you want to go back, no problem. Okay. So let's talk about the rules. I think after the rules, like I said, the classes will be short. Okay. The rules for choosing typefaces. Okay. So the first one is to choose type that is expressive of your product. Okay. So remember that all typefaces have personalities. Okay. Everything has personalities. The one I'm using here, I think, is one of my favorites. This is Brandon Grotesque. Okay. It's a friendly font. It's expressive of fun. Okay. So when you are choosing, that's why we say you do the research, you do all of those things. That way you know who your customers are, or who your main customers are, okay, or your main users are. So when you want to make these design decisions, it's easier for you. Okay. That's why we went through the UX process, first things first, you know. So when you know, oh, my main user base is 8 to 12. Oh, you can't afford to be going serious with them. Okay. You sometimes you may even see brands who end up creating custom typefaces just to meet the need of that user base. Okay. I'm not saying you should go and create typeface now. Okay. But but you need to pick typeface that is expressive of your brand. Look at the example here now. Okay. On the left, we are going with a sans serif. Okay, it's friendly, it's new generation, right?
Yeah.
So it works for that scenario. Whereas on the right, I'm going with display fonts. It's completely off. The button is completely off as well. Because it doesn't exhibit professionalism and it's also not friendly at the same time. Okay. Whereas on the left, it's professional and it's also friendly because we are appealing to a new generation, right? So always pick type that is, reflective of your brand. Okay. The second one is to use legible typefaces. Okay. So legible meaning your typefaces should be able to work in all shapes and all sizes, rather, all forms and sizes. Okay. Like here now we have Brandon Grotesque, and then I think we have Poppins. Okay. And fine, we can read the header, and maybe if you zoom in, you'll be able to read the text, because it's sans serif, it's okay. Whereas on the right, we're back with display. I don't know why display falls prey to many of these examples, but you get, it should be legible, it should be readable. Someone should be able to pick it at any size, be it a smartphone, be it a tablet or, a full-blown website, and they should be able to read it. It has to be legible at all sizes. So the third rule is pairing sans serif and serif. Okay. Now there's no one size fits all here. Okay, because generally serif typefaces are good to read for maybe when you have long copy. So if you are doing maybe a blog post, for example, it's advisable to go with serif typefaces. Tried and tested ones are like Times New Roman, which is why you can pick someone's project and read it for long and not get tired because it's mostly Times New Roman. Okay. So serif fonts are good. Serif typefaces are good for long copy. Okay. But then again, sans serif is preferable for young children. Okay. Or anyone who is actually learning how to read. So you see the contrast here now. So and another thing is sans serif is good for people with visual impairments. Okay, people who are not, their eyesight are not that great. You get, so that's why you do research. Okay, research will tell you all these things that, oh, this is my audience, okay, or this is the kind of product I'm going to do. So if I'm going to be having copy of 1,000, 3,000, or even 5,000 words regularly on my website, I can't afford to go for sans serif. Okay, I would have to go for serif because I want people to be able to read it. Or if my audience are going to be kids, oh, it has to be sans serif. Okay, so those are things that will determine how you choose, between those two typefaces. Okay, so advisable to go with web safe fonts. Okay, these are examples of web safe fonts. We have Times New Roman, we have Lucida, we have Georgia, we have Arial, we have Tahoma, we have Vedana. Okay, I'm not saying you should be restricted to these typefaces, because with the resources I'll give to you, you should be able to make as many pairings as you want. The resources are wonderful. So you just click and then they suggest pairings to you, and based on your product, if it matches, if it doesn't match, you generate another one again. Things are easier now. It wasn't then when you had to bring this, type it out, and then place one under the other and see does it match. Things are much more better now.
Mango pack time.
So rule 4 is using fonts from a single family. Okay, so this is another tried and tested method. I think earlier on you saw where I showed the difference between typeface and fonts, where we saw Helvetica. Helvetica is a very, very popular typeface. Okay, Helvetica even spans two types of sans serif and even enters the realm of one serif. So, meaning, that's why I said if you read anatomy of type, you understand better. Meaning the anatomy of your vertical remains the same across the board, be it serif or sans serif. Okay, so it means when you are bringing one family, okay, that has so many fonts, so many things are retained. Things like the line height, the cap height, the baseline. You're getting, so things like all of that will be retained, which brings about a variation and sort of matching anatomies. So you can have a vertical new or a vertical grotesque sort of, and then they are different in a way, but they are not different based on the anatomy, meaning they match very well, because that's where people find it difficult. You would have to find out the anatomy of this typeface and this before you can match them and know, okay, maybe their baselines are off by a few millimeters or something of that nature. Whereas when you're using one single family, one single font family, okay, they might have as much as 30, some have as much as 90 fonts, okay? So you are not limited with the variations, okay? You can always just bring in, the bold and then match it with the light or with the black font or with the, semi-bold or something, so you are not limited that way. That's another rule. You can just use one font, okay? Generally, I prefer to use two, okay? Which is the next rule. Limit total fonts to two. Sometimes you might want three, but don't go beyond three, okay? Once you go beyond three, everything is messed up, okay? Everything is completely messed up because the user won't be able to keep track of, what you are doing, okay? Like I think a design I'm working on recently, I'm using three, okay? But I was using three at the initial stage, just like an hour to the class, I discovered, man, it's too much, okay? So I had to take out one, So try to limit it to two, okay? There are situations where you will need three, okay? And sometimes you are not the one deciding the typeface you are using, okay? That's even another thing I forgot to mention, because some brands you work for, some clients you work for already have their style guide, and some of them will tell you these are fonts, so you have to make it work, So in those kinds of situations, if they have 5 fonts they are telling you they use, okay, and they tell you have to make it work, you will now have to play around it and make it work with maybe 2 or a maximum of 3. But most times you are fine with 2, okay, and in most cases it will be a serif sans serif pairing, but that doesn't mean you can't pair 2 sans serifs or 2 serifs, okay. I think the one I'm working on now, there are 2 serifs I'm using, and they are turning out well, okay. So the 6th rule is to avoid selecting similar fonts or similar typefaces, okay. So look at this now. We have Open Sans, we have Source Sans Pro. There's hardly any difference between the two of them, okay? So this is something you should avoid. Maybe what you can see might be the difference might be their O's, but their S are virtually the same. Their A's are almost the same. The N, the S, the P, okay? So it's almost the same thing, okay? So you should avoid pairing similar typefaces, because, you can't really tell the difference, between the two different typefaces. So I think already, yeah, we're already at the end of today's class. I told you to be a short class. Okay, so these are resources. They're already in the Google Classroom. So Font Flame gives you font pairings generally. Okay, so you just go in and then it generates pairings for you at random. So it's for someone who is starting out who doesn't really know how to pair fonts. There's font pair as well. So Google Fonts is by far one of the best because they have thousands, I think thousands or hundreds, I don't know, of fonts. Okay, you can actually download those fonts locally to your system, and then you can also, when you click on a particular typeface, you would actually see an option that says, frequently paired with, that kind of thing. So it also gives you pairings as well. That font is a resource for just downloading fonts. Then Font Squirrel is also a very wonderful source for downloading fonts. So everything here is free. They are not paying. They are paid sites. I think Adobe is also paid. Adobe limits you to about 100 on the free plan. Then after that, if you need more, you have to pay. There's fonts, myfonts.com. That's also paid. They are paid foundries. Font is not really consolidated into one place. So, you would have to find some of these foundries. Some people are independent creators. So sometimes they sell on their sites. So, but these are majorly the best resources. And I think Font Flame goes beyond what Google does because they're actually using Google fonts, but they are actually paired by hand, meaning someone has actually looked at those fonts and paired them, and then they upload up onto their site, and then you can look at those pairings and adapt them to your designs as well. Okay, so you have an assignment, just one assignment. Okay, so you have to choose a font pair. So if you are using only one typeface, no problem. If you are using two typefaces, no problem. Okay, so you choose a font pair for your product and you state why. Okay, so this will be based on the project you're actually working on now. Okay, so I think that's about our class. Next week, okay, not next week, Saturday. Saturday we'll be doing color. Okay, it will also be short because these are topics that are not really extensive. Okay, it will also be short. So I think that's about it for today. Okay, is there any other thing? Nah, there's no other thing. Okay. So if anyone has any questions, they can ask. Let me unmute everyone. Okay. So if you have any questions, you can go ahead and ask. Okay. Any questions? Any questions? If you have any questions, please ask. So it seems like we're good with today's class, right?
Yeah.
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 So guys, why are you not submitting your assignments now?
I think I'm done with my assignments. So it's just this new one that you just added.
Respect. This guy is fast. Okay, I'll check the classroom and see. Okay. Okay. Adilodu said, I didn't see script as an option. Yeah. Displays can also be called scripts. Okay. Yeah. So displays all tend to have a cursive nature, but it's not always limited to that. So they are more or less fanciful fonts. So scripts are one of them. If you go into the display tab, you would see grunge, you would see handwriting, you would see scripts, you would see dancing scripts, you would see. So display is wide. They just group them into display because there's no there's no actual way of saying. Let's break it out into other things. Any font that goes out of the normal structure, okay, of the anatomy is a display. Please, what is landing page? Okay, so majorly a landing page is more or less the first point of contact a person will have on your website. Okay, so if someone types in your website, your landing page will be what you want them to see first. Okay. But at the end of the day, landing page is not always limited to what you want them to see first. Okay. Sometimes a link can take someone to a landing page. So most times landing pages are used for conversion. Okay. So if I sell a product, let's say I sell bags, okay, and I need a landing page. The landing page is more or less to promote that product, either a bag or if it's a mobile application or whatever. But nowadays, people decide to convert their actual index page, that is their first point of contact, to their landing page. So it's more or less stopping them from having multiple designs. Because if I say, let's say, Bata, for example, bata.com, I want what they see by typing bata.com to also be the same as when I give them a link to get to Bata. In the past, landing pages were created so that you would provide a link, and then when they click that link, it would take them to what you want them to see. Hence the name landing page. Okay. So, when you get there, you see it and you're like, okay, you are, convinced, and then you buy the product or you subscribe to the service. But nowadays, people discovered, okay, people still do it. Okay. But nowadays, people just feel, oh, why not convert the initial page to be, because now web technology is already doing so well, that you can create these incredible designs now, as your home page and still your landing page, and you still get your conversions. Okay. So Mario, I hope I explained that to you.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah. So, what is the best font to use for videos?
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
I think it depends. Actually, everything depends on what you're doing. What type of videos exactly?
Let's say maybe either a short skit or maybe a movie, but a short skit, or maybe
Okay.
you want to make a production. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now, even when we were talking on short skits, okay, it's also dependent
Yeah.
on the type of short skits you get now. Yeah. So now,
Okay.
let's say,
Yeah.
okay, let me even use a movie as an example. Okay, uh, this new James Bond that's
Yeah.
coming out, No Time to Die, or what do they call it?
Yeah. No
Yeah,
time to that.
they actually created a font for the movie.
Wow.
So so it depends. It actually depends on what you are trying to achieve. Okay.
Chief. Yeah.
Yeah. So in most traditional titles, rom-com, that's romantic comedy, or
Or fiction.
most time fictional uh, movies tend to go with display fonts, meaning they can
Yeah.
tweak it to whatever they
Okay.
want. You get,
Want.
so
Yeah.
it can be whatever they want. They can bring in styling, they can mess with the angles and all, because it's a fictional movie.
Yeah.
Things that are more or less structured, like drama, would tend to go with serif. Okay.
Mm.
Things that are friendly. So I would advise most kids to go with sans serif, or maybe a grotesque version of sans serif. Okay, if you Google sans serif grotesque fonts, you will find different ones. Those ones tend to have nice descenders, and then I think even Gotham is a good example of one. Gotham grotesque. Those are
Okay.
more or less perfectly rounded fonts.
Yeah.
So they are friendly, sort of. So if you see some YouTube channels, some YouTube channels tend to go along the line of sans serifs. Okay, because if you even YouTube, even Google uses sans serif, they have their own. I think theirs is Roboto. Okay, their font should be Roboto. So it depends majorly on the context of what you are doing. So think of it at an emotional level before selecting the typeface. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Very well, sir.
so it's more or less at the emotional level that will determine. Okay, what you will go for. So if I'm trying to pass, maybe an ancient vibe, or let's say something like a historic vibe or something of that nature, I would go for an old school serif, like Times New Roman or something of that nature, because those are very old serif typefaces. Okay. If I want to pass something of class that is new generation, I'll go for a new type serif. You're getting, so it's that kind of emotion that will determine the typeface to go with, Yeah. So yes, some of these,
thank you.
yeah, no problem. Some of these create fonts uniquely for promoting them. This is common font, yeah, exactly. But if you are doing motion graphics of 30 seconds thereabouts, what kind of fonts do you use that is adaptable? Motion graphics of 30 seconds. And like I said, it's the emotion that will determine this whole thing. Okay. If I'm selling lipstick and I want a motion graphic of 30 seconds, a display font will probably be what I will go for. Okay. Because I want it to be fancy. I want it to pass that message, and someone to look at it and be like, oh wow, this is classy, this is something new, So the emotion is more or less what determines everything, Who would be seeing it? Okay, the type of person that would see it will determine how you will go about it. Okay. So, any other questions? Any other questions? Any other questions?
It's very enlightening, sir. Thank you.
No problem. You're welcome. Welcome. Okay. So I think we're done for today, right? So
Yes, sir.
yeah. So on Saturday we'll do color. Color is also straightforward. Okay, I won't say color is straightforward. color has issues, but as usual, I'll give resources as well. So I would say we suffered in our time, yeah, but now everything is so nice now. Like the landscape is wonderful now. So there are so many color resources now. And in most cases, in most cases, if you are working with a particular brand, they tend to have their colors already in place. We'll talk to colors on Saturday. Okay, so guys, take care. Don't forget your assignment. Don't forget your assignments. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Have a lovely evening. Okay.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.